got a beautiful sea breeze. It's starting to come in here, and this is the start of the first practice start, I guess you'd say. And we've got about 30 seconds, and pin is down here. Committee boat's up here. It's tough to tell from a motorboat, but from here it sure feels like it's a leeward end favored. We got a couple boats down here that are near the pin, and there's the gun. Yes, it's definitely a leeward end favored. So we want to talk a little bit about our approach to the start and what I might suggest there as far as finding an approach that works all the time, or what feels the best for you, and using that same approach in all conditions. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about determining which end of the line is favored, and okay, and now we've started. The group that came off the pin is pretty far ahead because the breeze has even gone further to the left. So again, this is another good indication of why we'd want to start near the favored end. Not necessarily right at exactly the favored end, but close to it. You can see these boats up in here are getting lifted more and more. They aren't quite laying the weather mark, but they're getting closer to it. Maybe we could talk a little bit here about some of the trim and tuning ideas and what we're looking for there. This is turning out to be just spectacular sailing, great boat speed conditions, and it's looking real nice. I'm pretty far away, so I'll kind of talk more than I'll shoot here. But let's just talk about some guides here. One is that we want to use the outhaul to flatten the bottom of the main. And frankly, that's not an adjustment that we want to make the power adjustment. We want to kind of pull the outhaul out so the bottom of the sail is smooth, the shelf is closed. We don't want any vertical wrinkles up and down off the boom in this area because we create backwind. And if we look here at this shot, we see a little bit of backwind. It's starting to breeze up nice now. We see backwind in the main, so the first thing that I might look at to think about making that better would be the outhaul. Tighten the outhaul up. And frankly, not only is it something that we pull on hard and leave it, we hardly ever adjust it, upwind or down. We pull the outhaul out, close the shelf, and forget about it. Here we go. Again, a nice tight outhaul would be cool. Second thing is, in the breeze like this, when we start to get backwind, a couple things we want to do is make sure we've got the vang on hard to bend the mast, and we see that going on here now. The mast is bent. We can see it actually starting to bow to weather a little bit. The boom's off center line. It looks pretty darn good. But what I'd also try to do is move the jib leads back, which will help open up the leech of the jib. If we look in here, we can see the back of the jib is pretty round. So by moving the lead back, we'll flatten the jib out, open the leech, and open the slot between the main and the jib. How much? I don't know. I'd probably try moving it back 2 inches or something. That'll just make that bottom of the jib flatter. Finally, pulling the Cunningham on will help hold the draft forward in the main and open the leech. We can see these wrinkles top to bottom here are meaning that the luff is fairly loose on the main. Tightening the Cunningham will actually pull the draft forward and put it closer to that magic 50% aft that we look for. This is a good angle to see. The jib is pretty deep, pretty powerful. Moving the lead back will help flatten that out and open the leech even more, or allow you to trim it in more. Okay, let's talk a little bit about downwind trim and what we're looking for there, sail trim-wise. And first, let's talk about the boom vang. You know, we got to remember we're trying to make the main look the same downwind as it does upwind. That is, the leech is nice and open. Much of the time, that telltale will fly off the top batten. It's a real good guide, okay? And the first thing I'd say about the vang is that when it's set properly, that telltale will flow right off that top batten. When it's stalled, which means it's flipping around behind the back of the sail, that's telling us that the vang is a little bit too tight or the main's trimmed in too tight. But when it's flowing off the leech like we see right there, that's a great sign. So constant adjustment to the vang, especially in conditions like these where it's up and down, is real important. This wind is kind of fluky right now. It's gotten kind of weird out here. It's all over the place direction-wise. This is interesting. We see David up here with the breeze out of the north, and the guys here with the breeze kind of coming out of the east-ish south. So it's a little fluky. But let's talk some basic guides on the spinnaker. One is, like we see here, to try to tie the spinnaker halyard so it's off the top of the mast when you're flying about 6 or 8 inches down. We just tie a long bowline and leave it there all the time. The pole is set perpendicular to the wind. That's a pretty basic guide, but that's real helpful. And what we often do on our topping lift right there is put a telltale up about a foot. And that telltale will make it real easy to tell when the pole is perpendicular to the wind. We try to adjust the sheet so there's a curl in the left of the spinnaker all the time, like a 6 to 12 inches of curl. That's more for giving us a good guide, not so much that makes the spinnaker faster, but it tells us when we're over-trimmed and not over-trimmed, under-trimmed and not over-trimmed, and that's very important. Oh boy, wind just swung back around to the north, and here we go again. So for the pole height, which is very important, especially in shifty up and down conditions like we see here, a good guide is to keep the two ends of the spinnaker even. But like we see here, in most conditions, it's really hard to see that leeward clew. Right now we got the twing on a little bit. If that was let off, the clew would fly up behind the main. But what we look for is the center seam of the spinnaker to be parallel to the mast. Oh boy, the wind just shut off and it's kind of coming from the north again. But almost all buck spinnakers have a center seam that goes from the head all the way down to the middle of the foot. And if there we can see it on this chute going right up through the middle. We would set the pole so that center seam is parallel to the mast. Here we are looking at it from the leeward side, but we can see the center seam here goes right from the middle up to the head, and right now we can see it's cocked a little bit. So this would tell us to lower the pole and for sure ease that twing off. We want the twing loose, as that will open up, if you will, open the slot between the spinnaker and the main. Very important. But we can see here too that maybe lowering the pole would be in order to make that center seam parallel. Okay, good job of getting the halyard off the top of the mast. That's cool. Good job setting the vang. We see that telltale flowing. That looks nice.